We are back again on a Monday night on Motorsports today. Thanks to everybody for stopping by and joining us live on TikTok. Of course, every episode also archived Apple, iHeart, Amazon, and of course, Spotify. You can find every episode of Motorsports today. We're live on TikTok Monday nights, 7 to 8 p.m., and then live on WRSU.org Fridays, 12 to 1 p.m. Got a big week ahead. Tim Moore's going to be driving to Kansas again. That madman's up to like 11,000 miles for us this year, and that's going to be upticked again for an exciting playoff race. We got a lot to get to. NASCAR F1, we're going to get into it. Eddie Kalegi, Tim Moore, Adam Trapper, Terrell Baker here with you. Maybe the craziest weekend in Formula One all season at Baku. Oscar Piastri crashes. Lando Norris can't capitalize. NASCAR drama at Joe Gibbs Racing. Penske starting to look like they're getting into championship form again. We're going to talk about New Hampshire as well. But let's take you through what you might have missed this week with our pit stop. So starting with NASCAR round of 12 opener for the playoffs after SVG, Austin Dillon, Alex Bowman, Josh Berry eliminated. A lot of people thought Joe Gibbs Racing was going to be in the mix, including me and Trapper on the show on Friday. They did not qualify well, and then the race turned into a mess because Ty Gibbs wouldn't let Denny Hamlin by, and Denny Hamlin spun him out. And a lot of words exchanged between them, Joe Gibbs, Chris Gabehart after the race. Don't really know how that's going to shake out going forward. What we do know is that Penske is looking really good right now. Ryan Blaney picks up the victory to clinch his spot in the round of 8. Joey Logano really fast too. Now suddenly finds himself 24 points above the cut line. Good get right day for Hendrick Motorsports. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, great runs. William Byron, a good run too. 23-11 really struggled. Both their cars finishing 20th or worse. Both of their cars currently below the cut line heading into this weekend's race at Kansas. And then in Formula One at Baku, 6 red flags in qualifying alone, a Formula One record. Max Verstappen, he ended up dominating, got the Grand Slam for the weekend. Pole, led every lap, had the fastest lap and won, but it was everything else that happened that was the story. Carlos Sainz ends up on the podium, finishing 3rd, becomes the first driver since Alan Prost to get a podium for Williams, McLaren, and Ferrari in his career. George Russell ends up moving through the field to get up to 2nd, was running all the way back in 6th early in the race. But Oscar Piastri lost control in the wet conditions. Turn 1, lap 1 crashed, DNF. Had a 31-point lead because of Lando's DNF back at the Dutch Grand Prix. But Norris didn't run all that well. Ended up having to settle for a 7th place finish. Still sits 25 points back of Piastri, so only able to eat into that gap by 6 points, not nearly enough to make the championship fight relevant again, as Verstappen got the win in Baku. That's your pit stop. We will circle back to Formula One later in the show. Again, if you want to engage and you're watching live, drop a comment down if you got a question for us, something you want us to talk about on the show. But we got to start with NASCAR, guys. And before we get to Ryan Blaney, we got to talk about the biggest story of the weekend, which involves 2 guys, this guy right here and this guy right here. Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, Joe Gibbs Racing. We have to talk about it. We'll go around the room. I want to just give a few quick thoughts first. Number 1, in regards to the incident, Ty Gibbs, I understand Denny Hamlin's frustration that Ty Gibbs was racing him way too hard and that Hamlin and Bell were significantly faster. It's a similar sentiment, ironically, to what Christopher Bell had about Carson Hocevar in the pits, about how guys who aren't in the playoffs should be giving way to drivers who are. And again, that's kind of the mess that comes with having a playoff system in motorsports where everybody who's been eliminated is still racing. And that's been the case for 20 years. That being said, I understand why Denny Hamlin was upset. I understand what he said on Actions Detrimental about how, listen, at the end of the day, the goal is for JGR to win a championship. It's been elusive for them. They haven't won one since 2019. Kyle Busch and Tony Stewart, those are the only 2 guys who have gotten them for them in the last 23 years. So let's be real here. There's work that needs to be done for JGR, and Ty Gibbs has been significantly worse than their other 3 cars that are legitimate contenders. At the same time, for Denny Hamlin to be talking about how Ty Gibbs is taking him out of the mess and, that it's hurting him and everything. When Denny Hamlin wrecked Ty Gibbs, he almost took out Christopher Bell too. Let's not forget that. He almost wrecked his own teammate. So taking this moral high ground here, yet almost taking out his teammate, who's also in the playoffs, has to be acknowledged as well. Looking big picture, though, Denny Hamlin does not care who complains to him. He's literally suing NASCAR right now. I don't think this is going to turn into as big of a thing as some people are making it out to be. And at the same time, I think Ty Gibbs is going to kind of learn from his mistake and is going to have a talking to behind closed doors, and this won't happen again. And to my last point, and then I'll go to Terrell first, I think Toyota is going to be okay. Because I know TCB, you had the hot take on the show last week that we are going to have an all Toyota Final Four. And given how they performed the first 3 races, that's valid. And then all of a sudden this happens. And I mean, this was quite the fall from grace from the round of 16, but we have seen drivers win championships or advance to the final round because of how forgiving this format is, even when they have a really bad race. And I think Toyota still has the opportunity to turn things around. New Hampshire's definitely going to be viewed as a missed opportunity collectively for the whole group, but I think they're going to be okay because in this format, if Josh Berry had won Bristol after finishing last the first 2 races, he would have advanced. It's a forgiving format. If you can get a win, you can get things done. We know the Toyotas have speed. I think they'll be okay. I think overall this whole incident is getting blown significantly out of proportion by just about everybody involved.
Yeah, Eddie, you're completely right. I think it is being a little bit blown out of proportion. I had boots on ground this weekend. I was right there live in New Hampshire. And when Denny Hamlin turned Ty Gibbs, that was right in front of me. So I had a perfect view of that. I will say this. I do agree with Denny. I mean, you got to look big picture, right? You're racing for a championship. You have a teammate that's racing you hard, and we know Ty Gibbs has done this before. He's raced his teammates hard before, but has not gotten to this level to where he's actually gotten wrecked. Now, with that being said, Denny already was kind of having a hard day. He was about 13th or 14th, I believe, when that crash happened. And he was struggling, and he was definitely faster to Ty. And I visually watched that battle brew for laps on laps on laps with him, Bell, and Ty Gibbs. And constantly, every time they were coming over the corner, I was pointing. I was like, oh, here he goes. Here he goes. It's going to happen this time. And it didn't happen. I thought Bell was going to wreck him, but nevertheless, that's not what happened. So I do agree with Denny. Ty Gibbs definitely should have probably rolled over. And I really do not think that Toyota should hit the panic button. They are really good at Kansas. Let's not forget that 45 car won at Kansas at one point 3 races in a row, I believe. So they're going to be fast there no matter what. 2311 is going to be faster. Denny Hamlin is always great at Kansas, so I think he's going to be faster too. And I think Briscoe, I mean, you can't count him out. Honestly, he started in the back this race. I know on strategy he got up there and got a top 10, but you just can't count them out. I'm still standing on my top 4 or my final 4 prediction. I believe it still will be all Toyotas, and it's not time to hit the panic button yet for the Toyota camp.
Tropper, you were really high on Toyota going into this weekend too, just like me. And then they kind of failed us with our picks. But do you feel the same sentiment as us that they're going to be okay out of this? And your thoughts on the incident?
Yeah, I mean, first off, when it comes to saying we're going to hit the panic button or even just nothing happening, I mean, as you said, it's a very, very forgiving format, and we're talking one individual race. It's not like this was Phoenix. This was for the actual championship. This is the lead up a month and a half beforehand. So I don't see any point of the panic button being hit by anyone. I think there probably will be some talks behind closed doors, even if there's not, even if I believe Joe Gibbs said that he's going to let them handle it, like the drivers themselves. Who knows if that's actually going to be the case or not? Who knows, honestly? But Ty Gibbs is probably, it's so hard to say because I was almost going to say Ty Gibbs is going to let this slide, but then I keep thinking in the back of my mind, it's still Ty Gibbs, and look what he did a few years ago when he was already locked in. So I'm already kind of backtracking my opinion mid-sentence here, but I still wouldn't say like it is all hell is about to break loose, obviously. In terms of what just happened itself here, though, I'm 100% with you guys. I mean, Ty probably should have moved out of the way a little bit. Denny did overreact, for sure. Like blatantly wrecking out a teammate. You know, you never know what type of repercussions that's going to have within a race, bringing out a caution in general. Retaliation like that always just felt stupid to me in general, especially when you aren't even in the top 10 and it's still fairly early on in the race. So overreaction, but I don't know, Ty. You gotta know when to cut your losses. And that's a veteran. A thing you learn when you get veteran experience. When to kind of push over to the side. When you know you don't have a good car, you know it's an organizational thing. You got to let Denny, the marquee driver for JGR right now, kind of do his thing. So I don't know. I'm kind of split, but I don't think anything crazy is going to come out of it.
And that's the thing, too, the timing thing. I mean, it was 60 laps to go in stage 2. I know he was getting, you saw Terrell in person, he was getting held up for quite a few laps, but it was still relatively early in the race to make that type of decision if you're Denny Hamlin. But Tim, the one thing I'll say to you, Trapper, like, I understand it is Ty Gibbs. I know he did a crazy thing a couple of years ago. I feel like it's a little different now. He is in the Cup Series. Yes. He is full-time in the Cup Series. And let's be honest, eventually we are getting close to when the conversation needs to be had here. He's no longer the young kid. He's no longer a rookie. He took over when Kurt Busch got hurt in 2022. He's about to be 3.5 years into his Cup Series career. And in 2 of his 3 full-time seasons, he has been significantly worse than his other 3 teammates who have all been legitimate championship contenders. In 2023, Hamlin, Bell, and Truex were all legitimate contenders. This year, Hamlin, Bell, and Briscoe are all legitimate contenders. Ty Gibbs is not in the mix. So I'm not saying Ty Gibbs has really no place or no right to complain, but at the same time, he's driving for JGR. Everybody knows there's kind of the Nepo situation there, and he's not fulfilling what was expected of him now 3 years in the car. So, I mean, I'll digress on that, but that's pretty much why I don't feel like Ty Gibbs has any kind of room to maneuver here. But 4th member of our team, Tim Moore, who's been in the NASCAR garage more than any of us this year, your thoughts on how everything played out?
Well, I thought it was very interesting, first off, how Chris Gabehart had mentioned things post-race. And, you know, the idea coming from Toyota and coming from Joe Gibbs Racing is, listen, we want to win all 38 races throughout the year, 36 regular season races, as well as our Clash and our All-Star race. And he kind of said, you know what, I don't exactly blame Ty Gibbs for being aggressive. And I agree and I disagree. I'm on TCB's side here of where I agree with Denny Hamlin is that, listen, you have a teammate that is racing for a championship. And in that particular moment, you have to understand the big picture scenario and the Cup breaks. A lap and a half, 2 laps before that, they're 3 wide. And I understand Christopher Bell may have washed up a little bit off the corner, but these drivers are all pinching each other. And you see him come down the backstretch. Ty Gibbs gets a little bit of contact from the 20. He gets upset. He comes down and starts dooring Christopher Bell all the way down the straightaway before they go to turn 3. And they almost crash there. And then a couple laps later, he's racing these teammates hard. Ty Gibbs, in my opinion, needs a little bit of a reality check to understand, listen, you don't have a right to have an attitude on the track. You haven't won a race. Yes, you were a playoff contender last year, but 3/4 of last season, I would say, or I should say not even 3/4, the first half of last season for Ty Gibbs was great. Then it was riddled with mechanical failures and other things, and it's been miserable ever since. And there was times this season where it felt like Ty Gibbs was showing plans. And then I think about races like Watkins Glen, where it seemed like they were on the right track. And then he throws a temper tantrum. And yes, I understand at that point they were in a must win, but not believing himself, not believing in his team. Ty Gibbs right now, I feel like he's under this microscope of pressure that he feels like he needs to perform because of the Nepo situation, as you mentioned, Eddie. But he's not being a good team player, which is the big issue when it's all said and done. Now, I will say this. Where my argument comes in, that I feel about the Toyota conversation, okay? Yes, Toyota may be okay, but in my truthful opinion, Toyota is not going to be okay in terms of getting all 4 drivers in the Final 4 like that was predicted before. Because here's the thing. When I look at 2311, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. New Hampshire was not what this group needed. Bubba Wallace was not competitive at all. Tyler Reddick had brake shake. And I'd like to remind you, I know TCB, you brought up the fact that the 45 at one point, for example, and won Kansas 3 straight times. If you look at the last 2 races, I'm truthfully scared for 2311 going to Kansas because they have not come close to running top 10 pace at all. So going back to the playoff race last year and the spring race this year, and I asked Bubba Wallace in the spring, you know, do you feel like you guys are starting to get back in the right direction, have an idea? And he said, I hope, because if we're not good here, when we come to the come around here next time for the playoffs, this is the track that we'll have circled about being worried about. So hence why I mentioned why I'm worried for Toyota. It feels that it's only the Joe Gibbs cars right now that have that consistent winning speed figured out. But at the end of the day, 23-11, again, Tyler Reddick doesn't have a win this year. Bubba has that one win and he's showing progress. But I feel this is too big of a hole for them to dig out of because Bubba is not a road course guy. Tyler Reddick may be. But outside of Kansas, I feel, for example, that's the 23's last chance. And the 45, he may make it on points, but he's going to need problems to happen. And the same thing as well for the record could be about Austin Cindric. But one last thing I'll say, too, is that, going back to Chris Gabehart real quick, the common denominator when you put things together here, when it was all said and done, the one thing that he said, and I still think holds true, and Austin Dillon said it to us as well when we were at Gateway. It's just something about these Fords and the Penske bunch, not just because they show up in the playoffs when it matters, but they just have flat tracks figured out. And that makes me extra nervous for Phoenix if you're any team trying to catch up, because the Fords are just that darn good right now at those styles of tracks.
Yeah, and we will get to the Fords momentarily, but TCV, I mean, 23-11, I agree with you, Tim, and I know the numbers recently at Kansas haven't been great. I think it's too early to necessarily rule them out already, just because with Tyler Reddick especially, even though he's had a poor year, which we've talked about on the show already, we talked about it last week, he showed that he could be clutch in the playoffs last year, particularly at Homestead. And this was a bad week for Bubba Wallace, admittedly, but think about the lead up to this. I mean, I know the playoffs becomes a lot of what have you done for me now, but before this week, Bubba Wallace had been by far one of the top 10 drivers, maybe top 8 in the Cup Series over the last 6-7 races.
Yeah, I agree. I really just, I'm not on the Tyler Reddick bandwagon right now. Not bandwagon, sorry. I'm not on the paddy wagon right now. I just do not see him getting in. He's just not there. I know we talked on this last week. He's just not there right now. I honestly was unaware that he even had brake shake. Obviously, I was at the track, so I didn't hear that part. But I watched him run back half top 10, and then just all of a sudden, I'm like, where's Tyler Reddick? It's like lap 250 or something, and he's back there. Bubba, obviously, at that point was a lap down, but he was like back there running around the 35, around Bubba, who was a lap down, around the 47. So Tim does make a great point. I think for 23-11 wise, if they don't have the speed by next week, yes, hit that panic button for that team. Absolutely. Because Tim, like Tim said, Bubba's not very good on road courses. Yes, he's done pretty decent at the Roval, but the results haven't been there. He's qualified pretty well, but just the results are not there. And Tyler Reddick, I mean, it's very up or down with him this season. I really can't. He's kind of like a dart without feathers, unfortunately. But I really just do not see Tyler Reddick getting in, and I'm not going to be too big on Bubba Wallace getting in either at this point, too, even though he is my dark horse. Unless they show that speed at Kansas that JGR has been showing within this whole entire playoffs, I just don't see 23-11 really getting in.
So let's flip it to the other end of the spectrum here. Penske was good as a unit in the round of 16. Let's ignore Josh Berry for a second. They were good. Obviously, their 3 in-house cars made it to the round of 12. And Cindric did not run well at New Hampshire. But the 2 best drivers in that race by far were Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano. And Blaney walks away with the win. He's heading to the round of 8. And Logano goes from entering the round below the cut line to now having a pretty nice buffer at plus 24. And for the people who are like, oh no, it's happening again, I hate to say, oh no, it's happening again. Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney in a very good position to go on a deep run. Because when you look at the tracks coming up, Tropper, I mean, as Tim mentioned, Chris Gabehart, the concern about how they've mastered flat tracks, and the championship again is going to be crowned at a flat track. But I'm looking at the races coming up after this. You still have both Kansas and Vegas. Let's not forget, they've been very underrated, but very good on the intermediates this year. Blaney won at Nashville. We saw Josh Berry, again, an affiliate car, win at Las Vegas way back in March. Joey Logano has shown that he can win the 1.5 miles in the playoffs before, and he won at Nashville a year ago. So look out for them at that track. We know how good they are at super speedways. Look out for Talladega. We know how good that Ryan Blaney is at Martinsville, and we know Joey Logano is unafraid to throw a bumper to anybody. So look out for them at Martinsville. And what have I just done? I've named every race besides the Roval that's left on the schedule. So there is a very good chance that Penske can go on a deep run. And this is why I think I said this to you on the show a couple weeks ago, Tropper. It was so crucial for the field to try to eliminate Joey Logano in the first round, because if he just keeps hanging around, he's only going to get better, because this schedule plays perfectly to him, and Penske knows how to make things work in this elimination style format. And it feels like every year they just get better as the year goes on. We've seen it now with Logano, and we've obviously seen it with Blaney after another dominant win.
Exactly. You mentioned 5 of his 6 remaining weekends, but the one you didn't mention, Verroval, guess who won the first time ever? Ryan Blaney. So they have all proven that, all Penske drivers, even Austin Cindric, who's very good at road courses. Maybe Verroval results don't necessarily show it on the Cup side, but still, I think that all 3 of those cars could be a threat to win any given time. And you asked all of us before, do we think it's time to hit the panic button on Toyota? Even though I don't think so, I do still think that the Fords and Penske, it outweighs panicking for Toyota when Penske's just going to perform way better than JGR and Toyota, most likely, at some of these remaining tracks, especially Phoenix at the very end, like they have literally the last 3 years. And that's what you're getting when you have, especially Blaney and Logano, 2 of the best in business. Logano's a surefire Hall of Famer, even Blaney too. But Logano, he is so dangerous at the end of these seasons. I mean, I was watching literally earlier this morning. It was on the 2B NASCAR channel. They're playing all the 2018 races. And that's where I realized Penske really did pick it up. Because remember the whole conversation about the big 3, Harvick, Truex, Kyle Busch. First off, who is it that came at the very end and won? Joey Logano. That was his first championship. But also, even a little bit earlier in that playoffs, Brad Keselowski, when he was there, driving that 2 car that Austin Cindric is now driving, 3 straight wins. He almost won 4 straight. Penske is just so good in this part of the season, and I really don't know how they've mastered the formula of just actually, everyone knows how they pick the tracks they need to focus on. They get their Ford programs ready to go, and here they are. But when you have that type of mentality, just how to completely manipulate these playoffs, on top of having 2 best drivers in the garage in Blaney and Logano, someone who, I think during broadcast, NASCAR Insight said Blaney was the number 1 passer so far in the playoffs, and Logano, ironically, the number 1 defender, which is something that Joey Logano has been doing for years and years on end. But when you got top-tier talents that are able to do that week in and week out on any type of track, these are going to be the most dangerous guys out there. And like I said, I would not be surprised if a Toyota does not win the championship. I'd put 99% bets that it's going to be Blaney or Logano winning it.
Yeah, and to the defender point, Tim, when you look at this schedule that's ahead, you've got 2 intermediates where Aero is a deal. You've got Talladega, where obviously you're blocking. You think about Martinsville, where you can just throw it down that bottom line and try to build a wall behind you, aka William Byron at Martinsville last year, even though that one was a little sketch. But my point is, Joey Logano, just all of these tracks that are coming up play to his mentality and the way he races so well. That's why he's a 3-time champion in this format. And it feels like, once again, even though he hasn't had a great year, he's turned it up at the right time. Penske's doing well. This team is so good in this format, and he's so good at these tracks that it's hard not to say that Joey Logano is very much in the mix to win his 4th championship now.
Oh, absolutely. And again, the telling tale is just like how people used to say, even when he was mathematically eliminated, you can never count out Jimmy Johnson, per se. You just can't count out Joey Logano. And that's just the truth of the matter to it. You know, Joey finds ways to make things out of nothing sometimes, or just finds ways to take a bunch of nothing, if that makes sense, during the regular season, and try to pinpoint little things that are going to help. And we talked about in the past, for example, Eddie, Penske experimentation, right? Joey is the orchestrator along with his crew chief. And to find things with Paul Wolfe, as he's done in the past, it's so remarkable. So when I look at this rest of the schedule, it's funny. What did they say for Joey on the broadcast this week, if you remember? They said their biggest worry in this round was Kansas. And yes, I understand the mile and a halves maybe have been not as good for the 22 as compared to the 12. But I would be very inclined to say that this group has learned a lot from its early success, that they're going to be maybe not as good as the Toyotas next week, but they're going to be up there competing and finding stuff. And I view it, honestly, not to derail off the topic, but I find this weekend, more importantly, the most important race of the playoff, in my opinion, of what's going to tell the direction of this championship. Because to this point, Hendrick Motorsports has just kind of skidded along. They haven't looked good as an organization from top to bottom since this race back in the spring, in my opinion. This was their best race car-wise. And Hendrick since then, I mean, it's just been kind of mediocre. Yeah, William Byron's had a win. Kyle Larson's just kind of existed. And Chase Elliott, yeah, they had a great New Hampshire, but Chase has just been getting, finishes, not good finishes throughout the season. So this race, in my opinion, upcoming is going to really tell the big picture of what we're going to see, because either who we see below the cut line right now of Chastain, Cindric, and the 22311 cars, if they don't pick it up or one of them doesn't win, I have a very strong feeling going to the Roval of what we're going to see going to the round of 8 and a better idea of who will be in that championship. But right now, if I were to circle it, not just about Joey Logano, but right now, based on last week, for example, we mentioned 4 Toyotas being in the Final 4. I don't know. I'm kind of on the side right now where I feel like you could see 3 Toyotas, 1 Ford, or 2 and 2 in the Final 4. I'm still not on the side of seeing a Chevy right now making the Final 4 with how bad Hendrick has been.
Yeah, I'm hesitant on them too. Chopper, I'll go to you and then Terrell. Like I'm worried about the Chevrolet camp because they just have not really capitalized and we haven't seen any sort of forward momentum. And it's funny. I mean, we've seen Toyota flex its muscle through the first 3 races of the playoffs. Ford has its shining race after a solid round of 16. Chevy has just kind of flatlined through these playoffs. Kyle Larson has been flat since he did the double in May. I mean, it's really just been very uncharacteristic of him. Chase Elliott, we know he's consistent, but in this playoff format, consistency can only take you so far, and that's probably the round of 8. And then William Byron, I mean, that's all I can say about William Byron's performance right now. So I agree with Tim. I think Kansas is really going to tell the story because this is a race where they shined in the intermediates. They've been good this year, especially Larson and Byron. But I don't know what really to make of Hendrick. At the same time, they could run well at Kansas. They could surprise me, and I would not be shocked if multiple Hendrick Motorsports cars go on deep runs in this playoffs because they have 3 championship-winning drivers, 2 who have done it before, and 1 in Byron who's very due to do it for the first time. But I just don't know where they really fit into this picture right now because there has not been a race where I can say, oh, wow, Hendrick really separated themselves and had a great car, like Tim said, since probably when they went to Kansas back in May.
You're right. It's the exact opposite right now. The only time you've been able to separate Hendrick performance is how far of a drop off it's been the latter half of the season and trying to figure out why when they have 3, arguably 4 at times with Alex Bowman, like the best overall driver lineup in the entire garage. And that's why I don't count them out entirely, because at the end of the day, if there's one thing I've learned from watching NASCAR, you never count out Hendrick Motorsports at the end of the season. Maybe it was because that was the height of the Jimmy Johnson days. Jeff Gordon was competing. There's no competing with the late 2000s, early 2010s, even Hendrick Motorsports. But at the same time, now you have Larson, you have Elliott, as you said, Byron. Those guys are all capable. And I don't know if they can make up for the lack of the raw speed, but I guarantee you at least probably 2 of them are getting into the round of 8. And at that point, Hendrick and Martinsville is a match made in heaven with all their drivers. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember. No, Byron did win there. So all 3 of the remaining guys have won at Martinsville in the past. I just feel like there's going to be, even though we did say Penske's best on the flatter and shorter tracks, I just have a feeling there's going to be some type of Hendrick performance at Martinsville that launches one Chevy into the Final 4. That might be my bold pick, but I have a feeling.
I mean, Larson's been good on short tracks, and Elliott and Byron have history there, but Martinsville, one of those weird tracks where I feel like you got to separate the spring race from the fall. Hendrick's historically been very good in the spring race, but when it comes to that high pressure closer type deal in the fall Martinsville race, the 3 drivers that stand out to me are Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, and Ryan Blaney, and none of them drive for Hendrick. So that's why it becomes a very difficult.
What about Chase Elliott? I say, what about Chase Elliott, though? Chase Elliott's had some good performances, I would say,
good performances
the last couple of years.
But when's this man going to win a race besides Atlanta? Like,
yeah, well, and the other thing, not to jump in, but talking about Hendrick, okay, maybe not for Kyle Larson, but you kind of can't rule them out of Talladega either. Just because, in my opinion, their strongest point this year, other than Daytona, which was kind of underwhelming in my opinion, even though they put themselves in a position late, Hendrick has been the group to beat, in my opinion, at super speedways. But the Fords, and why it's so compelling, is because when they get to this round, listen, I think there's a chance that we could see the Ford group out-strategize Hendrick Motorsports or out-strategize the Toyotas with their number game. So that's why it's like, again, why I think this weekend in particular is the most important telling tale of what we see in the future, because it tells how those races in a round of 8 will be approached before we even get in the round, in my opinion.
Well, TCB, you saw them in action this weekend. Where do you think Hendrick stacks up in this whole playoff mix?
Oh man, you guys make some really compelling points. I'm kind of with Chopper a little bit here. I could possibly see maybe one Chevrolet get in. It's hard to say who, because Larson, like you guys said, he's just been flat, and I really hate to harp on it because I feel like we've been hearing it since May. Larson has not been good since the double, and that's all we hear. He's got like what one or two second places. But I also do agree with Tim. This is possibly the most important race right here, because this is Kansas. This is Larson's playground pretty much. He won the spring race here, and we know he's good here. He rips the wall very well. This is like his playground, like I said. So I kind of could see Larson getting in, but I would not be surprised. Honestly, I'm going to just go right out with it. I'm going to say William Byron. If anything, he's the one Chevrolet that gets in. And I did notice at New Hampshire this weekend, anytime I looked up and I was like, oh, who's in third? Byron was running third. He was running fourth. He was up there consistently. And if you look every week, pretty much, he's the most consistent Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet every single week. Larson has not been very consistent. I mean, Bowman, we know about Bowman. He's already out of the playoffs. So Chase Elliott, for example, yesterday, I looked up. I didn't even know he started back in the 30s. And then I saw him 3 wide with like Cody Ware and, and Ricky Stenhouse. I had no idea he started back there. But that team has really, within the past couple months, I think, has been more of the grinded out kind of team. If you look back earlier in the season when he was just finishing 20th and finishing 15th and finishing 12th, it was like, oh, well, Chase Elliott, he just Mr. Consistent. He didn't wreck today, no DNFs. Now it's like, oh, here's Chase. Like, well, either now he gets wrecked or he finishes like in the top 10, because they've become more of that grinded out team. But with that being said, I'm still going to have to stand on William Byron being the one Chevrolet that gets in. I think he's just so consistent. And I was big on him last year. Honestly, I thought he was going to win the championship last year because he was so consistent. But he just, last year, he didn't have those wins, the longevity of wins that went deep into the season. I always say Byron gets his like 2 or 3 wins early in the year, and then, oh, that's it. See you later. I know he'll be in the playoffs, but I could see him maybe knocking off one win, maybe possibly Martinsville again, and then getting into the Final Four. I think he'll be the one Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet to get in.
And last point I'll make about Chase Elliott and that Martinsville conversation that, he'll clutch up there. What's happened to Chase Elliott the last 2 times he's run a short track race? DNFs. Now, one of them was 100% because of Kyle Busch, but still, he has DNFs in the last 2, and Bristol was his fault. I mean, he completely misjudged the closing rate of John Hunter Nemechek. So maybe he's due, but he has not really been able to execute at short tracks. And that's been the one type of track he hasn't been able to this year. But Kansas coming up this weekend. Again, Tim and Riley Ogle will be there. We're going to have coverage here on TikTok on all of our pages all weekend long. We'll have our compilation as always. Tim, I believe you told me today it's a triple header. ARCA's somehow racing to Kansas again. What are we in store for this weekend?
Yeah, so it'll be ARCA Menards Friday. Oh gosh, I'm trying to be 6 p.m. Eastern, I think it is, because the race is 7 Central. And then in the afternoon, it'll be NASCAR Xfinity Series weekend. They go there in the spring. That's going to be a very interesting race to see what happens as well after what happened in the first race, and then the Cup Series on Sunday. So again, I think overall, to be honest with you, for Xfinity as well, I mentioned it's the most important race of the playoff, at least for Cups. It may not be the most important race of the playoff overall for Xfinity, but to this point in the Xfinity season, I would say this is going to be the most important race just because of how the start of things went off a couple weeks back.
And I mean, that Kansas playoff race in the Xfinity Series has had some wild moments. Somebody flipped like 5 years ago when Anthony Alfredo got launched by Justin Allgaier. It's been 5 years. I still don't understand why Allgaier tried to run the apron 4 wide to make a pass on a restart, but I'll digress on that. But yeah, that's NASCAR coming up this weekend, about halfway through our show. Again, thank you to our sponsor, SeatGeek. Use the promo code MTODAY, capital MTODAY, $20 off your first purchase at checkout. Thank you to our producer, Drew Jua, as well, who's been getting everything set up for us on the back end. But let's talk Formula One, guys, because Tropper, I mean, I understand that track's a little chaotic in Baku, Azerbaijan Grand Prix with the tight turns. I understand that there was weather too. But 6 red flags for crashes in qualifying, and these are the world-class drivers. And then on top of it, Oscar Piastri ends up, I know they said the Grand Slam for Verstappen because he did all these great things. There should be some sort of title called the trifecta because Oscar Piastri managed to hit the wall in practice, in qualifying, and then turn one lap one of the race. So that's got to be some sort of accomplishment too.
Yeah, it was abysmal, not just for Piastri and McLaren, but painful to watch. And admittedly, I only watched the highlights. I was kind of off my game, especially with F1 this weekend. I was a little bit under the weather at times, but based off of what I saw, it was chaotic is a word you could say. It felt like almost the type of way we would describe a bizarre NASCAR race that kept going into overtime, just caution after caution, most of them seeming unnecessary. And Baku is a difficult track. I know that firsthand from the F1 video games. I can never make that one turn going like I don't even know which one it is, but you know what I'm talking about, like right where it goes in between the buildings. Like I can't
There's
do
a
that.
lot. That track is so crazy. I mean, it's the one of the wildest street courses I've ever seen because everything's so tight, but you go so. I mean, I was watching the onboards. I saw Leclerc was going like 185 into a turn, and then you're getting down to like 70. It's crazy.
Exactly. So credit where credit is due, that really only the world's best drivers would be able to handle a course like this. But clearly, for one reason or another, they did not that well this year. And I'm not sure entirely what that chalks up to. But I guess at the very least, you could say it made it entertaining to watch. I think I saw one stat that the qualifying session was longer than it was either last year's race, or
yes.
Yeah. I mean, how does that happen in the world of F1? Seriously. But I digress mainly because I didn't get to watch most of the weekend, but really bizarre.
Well, the story of the weekend is this, because we'll talk about Verstappen winning in a second, some of the underdog stories that kind of capitalize on drivers having issues. But talking about capitalizing on issues, that's what Lando Norris had to do. We've talked about it on this show since Lando had his DNF with 10 to go, with the mechanical failure that took this back and forth championship and essentially gave Piastri a race advantage. We had said all Lando can bank on is Oscar Piastri having a bad race. And what happens? Lap 1, turn 1, he's out. And it's not like he got surprised by this, like with 10 to go, like Oscar was. He had the whole race where he knew, okay, I've got to score points. And there were some significantly slower cars in front of him. And I know Baku's a hard place to pass, but for this McLaren team that has this incredible car, and for Lando, the driver that he supposedly is, when you have an opportunity like that presents itself 15 seconds into a race, Terrell, you have to capitalize. You can't finish 7th. You can't be getting outrun by Liam Lawson in both Mercedes and a Williams and not being able to pass them. When you find this out and you realize 20 seconds into the race that your only competition for the championship is out of the race, a 7th place with that car is inexcusable.
Yeah, definitely not a very clutch performance by Lando. I will say I'm also with Tropper on this one. Being up in New Hampshire this weekend, I didn't really get to watch the race, but I did watch the highlights. I saw Lando had a long pit stop. I mean, you can't have that, right? Like the championship leader wrecks out within, like you said, 20 seconds of the race. You have to capitalize, and they definitely, I mean, they swing and a miss for that team. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like anything outside of podium for that team at this level that they're racing at recently is just unacceptable, really. I mean, they should have definitely won this race. Not even won, maybe just gotten second or third, because it didn't seem like anyone was ever going to catch Verstappen unless they had a red flag and restarted the race and someone wiped him out. But that, like I said, that slow stop really messed him up. And then to finish behind a Williams, Mercedes, and not be able to pass. I mean, yes, it is a hard track to pass, but definitely, long straightaways, a lot of DRS, and then down in the turn one, you could really dive it in there. I saw the highlights of some guys actually being able to do that. But just not being able to do that and capitalize, it's tough. It really is. And I'm gonna take, it's not really a hot take, but I don't think Lando's gonna end up winning the championship. I really don't. I think Oscar within the next couple of weeks is gonna be able to wrap it up and kind of keep pulling away from Lando.
Yeah, and I think this just again proves the point. Lando Norris had his opportunity last year, floundered. This year, an even better opportunity, floundered again. And I think the whole irony with this, Tim, is that I'd say 5 years ago now in this sport, everybody was touting these two young hot shots that right away got opportunities with big teams. Charles Leclerc with Ferrari, Lando Norris with McLaren, and neither one has been able to live up to the hype. And obviously part of that is due to Max Verstappen just being great, which he still is. But now you get a year where Red Bull's car is so bad that Max Verstappen's superhuman abilities behind the wheel, which were present at Baku, aren't going to be able to carry them to a championship. And when the opportunity opens up, these two quote unquote superstars can't do it. And the one who is executing, not this past weekend, but the whole year besides it, is a guy who's pretty new to the sport, is only his third year, in Oscar Piastri, who in his first year struggled. People had doubts about him even getting that ride. And then all of a sudden last year turns into something great, gets his first win in Hungary. And this year wins 5 of the first 7 races and has proven from the jump that he's probably the better driver at McLaren right now. But again, not to beat a dead horse here, but Lando Norris in a race like this, when Oscar wrecks, you got to be better. And McLaren, to TCV's point too, Tim, they got to execute on pit road because they messed up his race 2 weeks ago with a bad pit stop. And then now you're not even worried about pitting Oscar's car. You're only pitting one car. You can't have long stops. You can't be having trouble with execution on pit road when you only have one car left in the race to worry about. That just can't happen.
Yeah, no, it can't. And again, to go back to the point that you made at the start of the year, right? How Piastri turns around and has this great start to the year. I'd said, listen, it's going to get to a point this season where if Oscar keeps it up, you're looking for that one bad day. If you're going to continue finishing 1-2, where both of you on the podium consistently, you're going to need that one bad day. And that could be the day. That's the difference in the championship. And in the world of F1, obviously in NASCAR, if you told me you finished 7th, oh my God, that's a great day if somebody DNF. But in the world of F1, with there being limited so many cars, single-digit points is not going to cut it when you need it. He needed at least a podium, at least a third, to come out there and say, you know what? We had a solid day, made good of a bad situation for how we looked speed-wise, and said, you know what? We made a significant jump. Now let's get to the final portions and try to get ourselves here to a chance of a championship. And unfortunately, it just wasn't that. And again, I'm not going to fully put on Lando. I'm not going to be as critical as you guys are. Because listen, everybody has bad races. It's hard when, yes, there's not as many cars on the track to be acceptable of mistakes and so on. But from the pit road standpoint, listen, you're taking a car that, typically every week's the best, isn't having the best days. It is your opportunity to step up and be the contributor that's going to make the difference. And for them to be the one that compiled onto a mistake, ultimately, in my opinion, is the nail in the coffin of the championship run for Lando Norris. Because at the end of the day, yes, everybody makes mistakes, things happen. But in significant moments, you need to step up to the occasion and be that person that's going to get things back in the right direction if Lando can't do it himself. And unfortunately, his team was in that scenario, and they choked in that situation and really hurt the outcome of his day. And I just want to also tip my hat to Max Verstappen, by the way, because when weather's in the area, I'm going to use an iRacing division term, Rainmaster, in terms of that series. It seems like Max is so good when there's weather in the area. And I also want to give him credit too. I don't know if any of you guys saw this. But he went GT4 racing in a crappy car, and I know I said crappy, but it's just really what it was. The last couple of weeks, he's going to go GT3 racing here real soon. He's been wanting to do that for a very long time, so I'm very eager to see what Max does in a GT3 in the next coming weeks. Because I think I may be wrong, but I think I heard he's racing on. I think it's the 27th. So that'd be this coming weekend, if that's to be true. But I'm not trying to spread false news, but that's at least what I'd seen, that he's going to be racing GT3 now that he got approved.
Well, he does just about everything. I know we talked about on the show, Tropper, when he went to Nuremberg and ran under a false name and set the fastest time ever at the track in some car, and he specifically used a different name so there wouldn't be a bunch of fans there to watch him race. It's exactly what Harry Styles did when he ran that marathon yesterday. I saw that, how he ran a marathon under some like pseudonym or something. But anyway,
I did not see that.
I don't know how One Direction even just got brought up right now. Let's get back to speaking of British people, Lando Norris. And I hate to just keep ripping on this guy, but I have to disagree with Tim a little bit, just because a lot of this is all on him. The reason the championship is where it is right now is the only 2 races this year that have gone south for Oscar Piastri. Canada, he wasn't fast, and then they end up colliding on a move that I put more on Lando than Oscar, and Lando ends up being the one that crashes out of the race. And then this race, Oscar is the one who crashes lap 1, and Lando can only finish 7th. And also, when you compound it, Tropper, with last year, when we were doing the math on this show, how many points does Lando need to gain to catch Max Verstappen? And he kept out qualifying him, and then he's losing the lead in turn 1 because he can't protect the lead. I mean, eventually you have to, unfortunately, make the revelation. Maybe he'll prove us wrong, but Lando Norris, when he's in a position to contend for a championship, simply is not a clutch driver. Unlike Max Verstappen, unlike Lewis Hamilton, and I know Oscar just had a bad race, but in the besides that, maybe this is an outlier. Oscar Piastri has been clutch. Verstappen has been clutch. Lewis Hamilton was clutch. Lando Norris is not.
Exactly the point I was just about to make, especially with last year in the qualifying situation. There's just something about it where it's different years, same story. Even if it's not qualification issues or a lap 1 start, there's just something that is preventing Lando from getting over that hump and actually being that world champion caliber driver. And I'll be the first to say, I think I said on the show last year too, if assuming he gets over that, and if Verstappen has a fall off, he could easily be the title favorite. But quite simply, he's been outshined by his teammate week in and week out. And I really don't know what that says about him. I think the clutch point might actually be the best way to describe it, because Lando's a good driver, very serviceable. He can clearly be second in the world championship standings for F1 of all things. So I'm not saying he's not talented, but there's one thing that's separating him from being one of the greats. And clearly it's that clutch gene trying to get into the championship hunt, or at least stay in a championship hunt. He's been failing to do that 2 years in a row now, and it's squandering potentially the best opportunity. I mean, you never know in the future what opportunities you're going to have, but with all the regulation changes that are going to come into effect next year, this is realistically him and McLaren's best shot for potentially a long time if, say, the regulations don't go their way. So I don't know. That might just be what his legacy ends up being. Just someone that was in the right place at the right time, but didn't capitalize on it for whatever reason.
I mean, you comparing him to the Minnesota Vikings, if you think about it.
Yes.
Good every year, but he just can't win the big thing when it matters. That's Lando Norris in a nutshell if he was a team.
Yes. I think that is that's pretty good. Now, I don't know what NFL comparison you'd make to Max Verstappen. Maybe it's the Chiefs, because he just keeps finding ways to win. I mean, this is unbelievable, Terrell. I mean, and this car is so bad right now for Red Bull. We see it, and we see the second car, no matter who's driving it, getting outrun by Racing Bulls, no matter who's driving that. Yuki Tsunoda, again, getting outrun by Liam Lawson. Lawson qualifies 3rd, runs in the podium most of the race, finishes 5th place. And then Max Verstappen, through everything, out-qualifies the field by almost half a second. And this comes after he set the fastest qualifying lap ever in F1 at Monza a couple of weeks ago. So he just continues to do it. And I mean, I don't know what it is. Is it his driving that he's just so talented? I also think, Tropper brought up the regulations. With everything with Red Bull, it's not like they're really building anything to next year, because you have the regulation changes in 2026. Newey's gone, Horner's gone, and the fact that, Max Verstappen has nothing really to play for right now. They're not winning constructors. It's an insurmountable gap for the drivers' championship. So this is the first time, I think, for Verstappen, maybe in his whole career, where he's completely at ease. He's not really racing for anything. He can just go out there and have fun. And the results right now over the last couple of weeks have been him dominating just like he did when he was on his championship run the last 4 years.
I do agree. I do think he is out there just having fun. I actually do have a quick question. I remember in the summer the whole thing with him potentially leaving. I wasn't too sure. Did he resign a new contract with Red Bull to extend it for a few more years?
I don't think it's been extended. His contract did run through 26, and I think he signed through 27. I forgot, but he's not signed on long term with them. I know that.
Right.
I think it was just mainly rumors about like a early termination clause, but I don't think he's enacting that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I believe that's probably what it was, Trapper. Thank you. And thank you, Eddie. But yes, he's just kind of running that out there, having fun. Obviously, he's not racing for a championship. He's already out of that hunt. I think he's just kind of on win mode, just win whatever race he can with this bad car. And unfortunately for him, he's out of the championship. I mean, he hasn't been out of the championship since, I don't know when, before COVID, 2019, right? Something like that, even sooner maybe, or even later on. But I do feel like Red Bull, they're just so good. I mean, they're gonna get it turned around in 26, I believe, with the new regulations and everything. And honestly, I feel like they should just get rid of the second car, just focus on one car, because I mean, it seems like no matter who they put in it, ever since Sergio Perez, I forgot where he got his last win at. Excuse me, sorry for forgetting that, but ever since he got his last win there, he just ran bad. He was running way in the back, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna put somebody new in the car, and then no matter who it is, they just cannot run good. Like you said, they're behind the Racing Bulls every week, and it is very sad, because I remember a time in F1 when I was watching. I remember Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber basically 1-2, if not they're second and third. I mean, they're up front every week, and it's kind of sad to see just one car here and one car is on the floor. But I do think they will get it turned around, because they are Red Bull, and I know they're missing a lot of people. Horner's gone, so I mean, they do have brilliant minds over there. You cannot sleep on them at all. They drink Red Bull all the time. They're always up. So yeah, I don't think you can sleep on them. I think they'll return to championship form next year, and it'll be interesting, honestly, to see who else returns to championship form. Will Mercedes potentially return to championship form, or will Ferrari make a comeback with Lewis Hamilton, and will Charles Leclerc actually do something also this next year? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, a lot of questions about Ferrari, a lot of opportunity with the regulations. A couple more drivers just want to give a quick shout out to. As I mentioned off the top, Carlos Sainz, great run, qualified second. Someone who I kind of felt bad, kind of left out of the shuffle of the driver dominoes last year, ended up with Williams, but has run really well with that team this year. Gets his first podium with Williams. Great run from Liam Lawson. Double top 5 for Mercedes for Antonelli and George Russell as well. Both those drivers that performed very well this year. So shout out to those guys. But I want to wrap up the show with our regular Monday segment that we didn't do last week, but I want to bring back this week because there's a couple really good ones I want to get to, which is tweets of the week. And the first one is an F1 related one. And I'll go to Tropper because it's from Alpine, and their team account tweeted a picture today of their car, one of their cars, I think Gasly, running way in the back. And the tweet reads, with our current package, we know the last few races will be tough. Time to see out 2025 and keep pushing back at base. What team ever in any motorsports division has posted on social media that their car sucks? Like, why are you, what is the point of that?
Yeah, that's first time hearing about this. Interesting way to decipher it. The closest comparison I can think of is maybe one of the NASCAR, one of the underfunded Xfinity teams making fun of themselves. That's the only thing I can think of. But a top tier, or what's supposed to be top tier form of motorsports in an F1 team, I don't care if they're at the back of the grid or not. I mean, that's a little surprising, because what does that tell your fans? What does that tell your sponsors? What does that tell your driver? And yes, it's the end of the season. I guess they have nothing to race for. Maybe trying to get up the constructor standings by actually scoring a point somewhere. But outside of that, I mean, I'm actually a little bit baffled by that. Not necessarily in a bad way. I just think it's funny, but I don't know. It just feels like something that top tier motorsport teams should not be going out and tweeting when there's still a good amount of races left in the season.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like, what does that tell your fans and your sponsors for the rest of the season to continue? Why they should even continue supporting your team? Like, don't put that out there. You can think it, but don't say it.
Is it just like the social media admin like trying to do something towards like Gen Z or like some internet trend I'm missing? Like,
I don't think so. I think it's just being stupid. But I'll leave that one at that. Last tweet. So I was not entirely locked in on the cup race through the middle stages yesterday because the 1 o'clock slate in the NFL was crazy. I was going nuts when the Eagles won the way they did, all the blocked field goals. So I missed a caution during the race. And I see the thumbs down, Tim. Good performance by the Giants last night. Anyway, I saw a tweet from Jeff Gluck that says that, Cody Ware just broke the number one rule in racing. And then I see that there was this caution where, and Perel, I'll go to you on this first. Cody Ware tried to wreck Austin Dillon and failed miserably, just like Danica with Landon Castle all those years ago.
Yeah, that actually happened in front of me also. I did kind of forget about that. So yeah, Austin in 3 and 4. I didn't see this originally happen. I remember I was looking down, all of a sudden the PA announcer goes, "Trouble, turn 4," and I see Cody Ware spun out. So, okay, all right. That's kind of normal. No offense to him, of course. But I was just kind of watching. I think there was a battle at the time. I think this is kind of when Larson and Briscoe were battling or something like that. And all of a sudden I look up and I see Cody Ware nose into the wall. And I'm like, oh, twice today. That's new. And then they show the replay and I'm like, oh, he actually tried to wreck him. I can't believe this. And he definitely failed at it. But you know what? My thoughts on this are this. Cody Ware he's had a tough season, right? I mean, the Chicago wreck, you think of that. That was a brutal wreck, and NASCAR should have thrown a yellow for that, but that's a story for another day. They have not, I wouldn't say they haven't performed up to par because, I mean, last season when Justin Haley was there, they were really like good. And now this season they have some flashes where they run 20th or something, but other than that, they've just the past 10 weeks, they've been staggered back to where they were, like 31st, 30th, like running dead last almost. And I understand Austin Dillon did just tap him, but I mean, come on, man. You can't just do a big swing and a miss like that, though. Like that's bad. And especially because I don't want to make it seem like a bad thing, but because he is Cody Ware, of course, the internet's going to have a lot of play on him. But yeah, if you're gonna wreck somebody, you gotta take the guy out, not yourself.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even take out the 3 at all. Like the Austin Dillon like immediately gathered it up, and Cody Ware ended up not just spinning but banging into the wall. Tim, I'll give you the last word on this one.
Well, I'm not going to talk about the incident. I'm just going to say it like this. What is there to be upset about, Cody Ware? Your dad just settled a lawsuit with Legacy so that the charter will be given to them likely for the start of the 27 season anyways. And if it is, I'm sorry, for the start of the 26 season, but it's going to be released, I think, still to RFK for Legacy. I don't know. They're not very much answering the questions, but the point is, you should be ecstatic. You have a job next year, Cody. There was a potential chance that you may not even have a ride had things not worked out. So I don't know what Cody Ware's all fed up about, other than, I'm going to be honest, outside the super speedways this year, the 51's been embarrassing on the racetrack every week. And at some point, you got to make some progress. We thought that was like that last year. In all fairness, Justin Haley looked good to start last year, but then you look at the results once they got past Iowa, and it was miserable. So I just feel like Rick Ware, honestly, and I don't mean to talk down about a team, but I talked about harsh about Spire, for example, at the start of the year, where it just feels like they make positive moves and then nobody knows what's going on. I feel Rick Ware Racing, they literally have no clue what's going on. I feel that I can find some ARC organizations that are better put together and have a better understanding of what they're doing as a group than what Rick Ware Racing does at this point in the year and at this point in the organization. It was bad to watch, and to be honest with you, it was bad to watch Carson Ware racing the ARC race, a Cup team that has no speed at all, multiple laps down, is pretty embarrassing as well, in my opinion, for the ARC series. So I'll leave it at that.
Give Junior Motorsports, give Big Machine, give Alpha Prime Racing, give Thor Sport a Cup charter at this point instead of Rick Ware Racing. That team just has no direction at this point. I thought Rick Sr. was like some genius businessman when he had the 4 charters, then he sold them. I thought then he was going to invest that money into making the cars better. Turned out the cars are no better. And on top of it, he goes from actually hiring a competent driver to putting Cody Ware back in the car.
I would argue BJ McLeod was more competitive. I'm just being truthful.
He is. When he shows up at the super speedways, BJ McLeod was in the lead at Talladega.
Catherine Legg has had some good runs this year. Like, give her credit. As much as people were critical about her finish, Legg has had some really good performances in terms of average finish. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you look at stats, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I checked, I'm pretty sure she has a better average finish than what Cody Ware does this season.
Sure does.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yep. It's crazy. But we'll wrap it up with that. Fun time again here on this Monday night. Every Monday night, we're live from 7 to 8 p.m. on TikTok. Shows are archived on Spotify as always. Friday, we're back live 12 to 1 p.m. on WRSU.org. Trapper and I will be there to get you set for Kansas. We'll have coverage from Kansas this weekend. Tim and Riley making the trip, so you'll want to keep an eye out for that. Follow us on the socials at Motorsports Today. Leave the O's out on Twitter. Spell it out everywhere else. Find us on the web, motorsportstoday.net. And this episode powered by SeatGeek, promo code capital MTODAY for $20 off your first purchase. Thanks for Drew Jua for running things on the back end. For Adam Trapper, Tim Moore, and Terrell Baker, I'm Eddie Kalegi signing off of another fun episode of Motorsports Today. We'll talk to you on Friday.